Doctors, do you know why most chiropractors hire the wrong people? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast, bringing you cutting-edge business strategies that are over the top and here to make you outgrow your competition. I'm Dr. Michael Perusich, your host, and this is my my co-host, Marisa Mateja. Hi,
Hello.
Marisa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We're getting ready to dive into a two-part series, y'all. So hang on. We are going to talk about something that's really important. And I think it's a conversation that oftentimes doesn't go deep enough when we hire people. That's kind of what we're talking about here. It's kind of a surface level thing most of the time. And we really need to dig deep, very, very deep on this topic, because too oftentimes we're hiring the wrong people. And what happens? We wind up with a whole bunch of turnover. We talk to you guys out there all the time, and everybody's facing the same thing. Oh my gosh, I've got to hire staff again.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. So
The other side of that is sometimes we keep people we shouldn't, right? So sometimes we
exactly.
hire too fast and sometimes we keep too long. There's a balance somewhere in there. And I would say you might even have to diagnose your people, figure
And
out,
that's the big issue
yeah,
is,
figure out
is we're not
who
really,
you need and who you're going to
yeah.
hire.
And sometimes we not really have getting crossways with staff isn't really the right term, but sometimes we feel like they're not working out or they're not engaged enough or something. And is that their fault or is it our fault?
Yeah.
As the clinic owner? And I think we have to learn how to diagnose our people so we know how to train them. And of course, that's a whole big topic. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine. A lot of doctors want to just throw some thoughts, show somebody how to do something once. And that's not training. That's not how you practice. That's not how you get better. So I love this concept of you have to diagnose your people. I think that's very, very important, because when we get into scenarios where it seems like an employee isn't working out, maybe it's not always a firing issue. Sometimes we just have to learn how to save good people. And if we don't diagnose them, we don't understand them deep enough to know whether or not we should save them.
Sure. And I think that goes with having a good training program set in place. It goes with continual training and then having your leadership on point to make sure you're paying attention to whether they're savable or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And docs out there, you don't build a high value practice without doing training. Training is so important. And we don't spend enough time doing training. Again, we just want to throw some thoughts at people and, show them how to use your EHR once and gloss over how billing and collections works. And maybe they don't have any experience at it. And so we're not giving people a deep enough understanding for them to be able to do things the right way for us.
Well, I think it's normal in most of our practices that when we get ready to hire, we're doing it under pressure, right? Like we're typically in panic mode. We've got to get somebody in there. We've got to get somebody in that seat. We've got to fill it now. And so
Yeah.
instead,
Somebody fill it with a lot of money.
yeah. And we've all been in those scenarios and it happens. So a lot of times I feel like we've got to slow down, really make sure we've got our job descriptions put out there correctly, making sure that it's exactly what we need that we're hiring for. Then we've got to make sure that the people we're interviewing are going through some personality tests, some communication tests. We're making sure that they're truly who we want in that seat. And sometimes we've got to slow down. But in our practices, because we run our practices with a lot less staff and those kind of things than a lot of other practices do, you end up in these panic moments because, I just don't have enough people to get the job done. So we've got to just here and put them in there, whatever. And then we go back to, if we're not leading them along the way, then we're not giving them the knowledge base. And I'll give you a great example. I was talking to an office the other day, and they've got somebody in a role that really has no understanding of insurance and billing, but yet they're collecting money for the practice. Okay,
Wow.
stop right there. That's a training issue. That person has to have the knowledge They have to understand the insurance. They have to understand what's going out to be able to know what to ask for from the patients. That's a huge misstep, if you ask me, if you've got people in roles that don't understand what they're doing. I- Is it a training issue? Probably. This person's very intelligent. They can pick it up, but they've not been given the information. So that goes back to we've got to lead our people in the right places to make sure that they can be the people that we want to keep on our team.
Yeah, and that's a great example of really why we should be hiring people. We should be hiring people not to just fill a position, not to just fill a seat, not to bring another warm body in. That just increases the chaos in practice. But we need to be hiring people with return and profitability in mind.
Yes.
And if we don't do that, then your example is perfect. That person who's doing your collections, that's a pretty important role, right? If they don't understand how patients' insurance works, how write-offs and those kind of things work, how the
Allowables.
balance on their, yeah, allowables and limiting fees and, all those great things. And they don't understand how the balance on a patient's account actually was calculated and got there. How are they ever going to explain it to a patient? And one of the number one ways to send a patient out of practice, out of the office, is to confuse them about finances.
Absolutely.
And so that person, only because they haven't been trained and their knowledge level hasn't been brought up to speed, they've been put in a position where they're actually going to depress our return, and our profits are going to be lower because of that.
Well, it's a clear sign of people leaving the practice because they don't understand what their insurance is going to do. They don't understand. And I hate to say this, but I feel like a lot of us are scared to talk about money, right? It's just plain and simple. But a lot of it is the training. It's just not understanding it. Once you understand it, it can be very black and white. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what your insurance is going to do. Here's what you owe. It can be very black and white if you make it that, but you
Yep.
have to have the knowledge to start with to get to that point. So are people really a hiring mistake or is it a training issue? That's what you've got to define.
And were we really thinking when we hired that person, not only are they the right person, but are they somebody who can gain the knowledge that I need for them to have in that position to be able to produce and protect our revenue streams?
And everybody on the team, in my opinion, should be a revenue generator of some kind.
Absolutely. 100%.
So to be able to dig into the practice and help.
Yeah. We need to take a quick break. We're talking about something that's very, very important. So I hope you all are sitting up and taking note of this. This is probably a podcast you're going to come back and listen to more than once because there's going to be a lot of jewels in here. And remember, it's a 2-part series too. So we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Affordable care shouldn't mean undervaluing yourself, but most chiropractors are still undercharging, especially when it comes to insurance allowances and cash patients with limited coverage. Chiro Health USA helps chiropractors charge appropriately, get paid well when insurance is available, and still serve patients with no or limited benefits, all through a compliant discount medical plan. The result? Doctors stop undercharging, raise fees, and increase income by about 20% without sacrificing care. That's not a discount strategy, it's a business strategy. Learn more at chirohealthusa.com.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast. Marisa, we're talking about something that's pretty darn important, and that's the hiring process.
Yeah.
And there's a concept that you bring up actually quite a bit, and it's kind of the silent killer sometimes in the hiring process. And I'm going to let you kind of roll with this, but it's the C player versus the A player.
I love thinking of it like this, right? Everybody could be an A player is my feeling. However, are they an A player on your team? That's the nugget that we have to remember is that not everybody's going to be that person that generates revenue for your practice. Not everybody's going to be the person that learns all the insurance. They're not going to be the person that talks about money. There are people who just don't fit certain roles. Have you put somebody in a role that's making them a C player?
Yep.
That's the question, right? Are we putting them in a position, well, maybe they're not bad enough to fire, but they're not strong enough to grow. what do I do with them? That's the bigger question, right?
And far too often, we let them just lumber along and continue to be a C player. And what do you get out of a C player? You know, if you've played sports, what you get out of a C player is you don't get excellence and you don't get complete failure. It's just kind of this neutral result. And in this scenario, neutrality actually leads to negative outcomes.
For sure. And I
So,
think that's the position we all end up in is, okay, do I have the right person, but they're in the wrong role? Is the C player trainable? Can they make it up to an A player? Those are the questions. But you've got to have somebody that creates urgency in the practice, that communicates value to your patients, that engages all the patients in the education process and having them understand from the very beginning, here's what your insurance is going to do for you. Here's what our cash plan looks like. Here's what, it's communication throughout. And if people aren't in the right role, what do you do with them? I mean, that's the biggest, because your business is going to require momentum. You can't live on maintenance. You've got to have some kind of momentum moving forward. And if your players, your teammates are C players, you've got to do something with them. And it's either train them or let them go.
yeah. And
You're doing them a disservice because they could be an A player somewhere else.
sure, absolutely. And C players are not hard to spot. You know, they're the teammate that doesn't create any urgency with their role.
Yeah.
I don't want to say they're lazy, but they're just it, it, they just don't have that urgency behind them to really help drive the vision of the clinic. They don't know how to communicate value to patients, for example. And in today's world, that is hugely important. They don't be part of creating the patient experience in the office, and they don't know how to help you, the doctor, keep patients engaged in care. And these are all important. I don't care what role you're in the office. Those are the basics. And if you don't see those things with your staff, you've got to decide, is this a training issue? Is this an individual training issue? Is this a team training issue? Do I need to restate the vision? Or do I just have the wrong person in that role?
Yeah. Yeah. And it could even be a standard issue.
It could be
Meaning,
a standard issue.
do we have a team that has energy, ownership, engagement, all of these things? Or are we not leading that kind of energy? So I feel like that could also be a factor that we've got to watch. Are we creating a higher standard for our employees every single day?
Okay. So you bring a great point here, doctors. You can't just throw the practice to your staff. You have to lead. And so they're always going to follow your lead. And if you're acting like a C player, and you better not be if you own the clinic,
Right.
you need to be the A plus player, but they're going to follow your lead all day long. And if your energy is low, if you're not engaging patients, if you're not helping to create that patient experience, if you're not driving the vision and the profitability of the practice, your team won't do it either.
Well,
So
what
they
you
can't
tolerate.
they can't take over that role for you, but they can support you in it and make it better. So you can't have a really bad, poor skilled quarterback on the field and expect the rest of the team to win the game. It just ain't going to happen. So we've got to step up and really step into that role. And that's what Marisa's talking about here when she's talking about the standard. We have to set the role of what that standard looks like. And you don't get what you hope for.
Right.
You get what you tolerate.
Yeah, it's setting that higher standard. Don't just stay down here. If
Right. Don't accept C as
yeah,
the
if
average.
you've got to set the standard for what you want, and don't just hope that it happens.
Right. Exactly.
It's your business.
We need to real quick hear another word from our sponsors. So everybody hang on. We're talking about the hiring process. This is good stuff in this 2-part series. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
patient numbers dipping, staff overwhelmed, and another marketing idea promising the world but delivering nothing. These pressures feel familiar to nearly every chiropractic clinic today. Across the country, chiropractors work hard, yet many find themselves stuck, balancing patient care with the nonstop demands of running a business. That's where the real strain begins. Most clinics face the same set of hurdles: inconsistent new patient flow, operational bottlenecks, and the constant challenge of staying visible in an overcrowded digital space. National reports show that over 60% of clinics struggle with scheduling efficiency alone, and even more lack a clear marketing strategy that reliably converts. But the good news? These challenges aren't roadblocks, they're signals. With the right procedures, smarter outreach, and guidance built specifically for chiropractic practices, clinics can turn daily stress into sustainable growth. Stronger clinics start with smarter strategies. Grow your practice with confidence. Book your strategy session with CATS Consultants.
All right, everybody, we are back. Marisa, there's a lot of takeaways here.
Yeah.
And, I love this idea that we have to have a higher standard. We have to have leadership in the practice. We have to lead by example.
Train.
We have to train. And that's a constant thing. That's a constant thing.
And we have very good rules for what we're hiring, who we're hiring, what we're hiring for, and who we're hiring in those roles.
And let me throw out this concept. There's a difference between teaching and training. And I think too often we have this mixed up in this profession. And we do a lot of teaching. So what is teaching? Teaching, well, let's go back to school where you were taught things. You're taught something out of the textbook one time. You take a test on it to test your one-time knowledge. But how many of you still remember basic algebra? I mean, you remember being in the class, but do you really remember the confines of basic algebra and all the rules? No, because it was taught to us one time in a lack of use environment. In practice, it needs to be an over and over concept. So training is what you do as part of the team. In sports, for example, you train constantly. You train Monday through Saturday to go out and play the game on Sunday.
So it's
And
real.
it says, yeah, and it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
And so I think far too often in the profession, we have a tendency to just want to teach.
Yeah.
Here's a procedure manual, just read it and do your job kind of idea. Instead of let's practice, let's do this individually, let's do this as a team. How does it all fit together? And I think that's incredibly important. Otherwise, all we're doing is creating an administrative team of task doers.
Yeah. And listen, hiring is strategic. It needs to be strategic.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to
Absolutely.
hear in our practice, what we would do is look at the team that we had. We went down to even looking at who were the people on our team, were they in the right roles, and what were their personality types? Did they match up the role they were in? Who are we missing as a full-scale practice for personality types? We need them all.
Sure.
There's no bad personality type out there. We just have to know if they fit in the role that you're hiring them for. So everything's strategic, or should be.
Everything's strategic, and we have to make decisions not out of emotion.
Yeah.
We have to make decisions that are really diagnostic.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a hole in your team right now, maybe somebody's left, retired, took another job, whatever, don't panic. Don't panic.
The biggest thing.
Stop and think about what the role is. Who do I need to fill it? And how am I going to get them up to revenue generating speed for the practice? And kind of piggyback on what you were just saying, how are we going to help them fit into the team?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that integration is incredibly important.
Yeah, it's important because if you don't get the right thing, your clinic doesn't gel. It doesn't function normally.
You can't get this wrong.
It just doesn't work. Like
Right.
you gotta have the right people in place, or there's a cog in the wheel and you can't ever get going. It's just like
Exactly.
you're just on a hamster wheel, right? You just can't get out there and run free. So it's very important to make sure that you're picking the right people to put in the right roles for that person. Because again, I'll go back to my C and A players. You want everybody on your team to be A players.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great way to end this part one of our 2-part series. Next time we're going to talk about the concept of, do you fire or do you train more?
Very
And
good.
so be sure to tune in for that. Marisa, anything to add before we close out?
No, I don't think so. I think this was great. Just, let's make sure that we've got the right people in place.
Yes. And when you have the right people in place, let's get them trained so they become even better over time.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody, from all of us here at CATS Consultants, make sure you go to catsconsultants.com, check out all the great stuff we're doing to help doctors really create profitable practices. And that's important. Marisa, we've got some free downloads on there and things as well.
But yeah, free classes, free downloads, lots of knowledge to share with you. Of course, you can check out several of the podcasts and different things that we've always got going. So lots of information out there for everyone to dive into. We've also got a virtual seminar coming up May 14th. And so if you are curious about what our teaching style is, what we do, go to our events page and sign up. Come join us for that day. It's a 4-hour class. Lots of information. It's called Game On. You'll see it on our events page. Go sign up. Come see what we're doing and see what kind of information you can share with your team.
And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at how different we are. We just have a different approach to practice, which really works. All right. As I always say, know your business, know your numbers, or stay broke. We don't want you to stay broke. So be sure to tune into the KC CHIROpulse Podcast every week. Be sure to like and subscribe as well. And we will see you next time.
See ya.